Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, and today we're discussing about Detective Comic number 1107. Without wasting any more time, let's dive into it. But before we start the video, if you're new to our channel, please subscribe because your one subscription motivates us to create more amazing videos like this. Let's jump into it. Let's do a quick recap of issue number 1105 and 1106. In issue number 1105, Bruce Wayne goes to Leo with a box, and Leo becomes happy seeing Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne gives Leo a trophy and tells him this year it comes with a substantial cash prize for materials and further learning. But after some time, Leo goes missing, and Batman goes to the Wildcat gym to find him. There, he meets Black Canary, and she tells him that there's a man in the gym known as Beast, and he challenged Leo to a fight. Leo defeats Beast, then Leo grows stronger and eventually becomes a champion. But when Leo fights Black Canary, he loses. Later, when Leo's coach goes to see him, Leo doesn't see his coach. Instead, he sees a demonic version of Batman. Leo gets scared. After some time, it is revealed that the disease spreading throughout the city is actually being spread by Leo himself. And now let's jump to issue number 1106.
Here we see Gotham completely burning. People are attacking Batwoman while Commissioner Savage is giving orders to control the situation. At the same time, Officer Gordon arrives and starts beating people down. On the other side, Batman injects fear toxin into himself and starts experiencing all his past flashbacks, moments where Bruce was happy with his parents, his conflicts, his relationship with Batwoman, his rivalry with the Joker, Alfred, who became like a father after his parents died, and finally, the huge responsibility where Bruce himself becomes a father. After injecting the fear toxin, a fight breaks out between Leo and Bruce, and in the end, Batman hits Leo with the Batmobile. Then Bruce uses an airplane to spread the antidote across the entire city and tells the people of Gotham to return to their homes. So that was a short recap of issues 1105 and 1106. Now let's talk about issue number 1107. So our comic opened at FBI field office, Gotham City. And 1 week ago, the FBI agents secure a package. And one of FBI agent says, "Miss Eager, I'm Special Agent Len. How are you feeling?" Now we meet Judy Eager, the package, and she just says, "Honestly, my heart won't stop pounding."
And then Agent Len says, "That's understandable, but you're doing the right thing." And then Miss Eager says, I think I need to sit down. So now her anxiety's escalating. She's not just nervous, she's on the verge of breaking. And that's where Agent Len just says, "Of course, we have a nice room set up for you. You can rest in there, and I promise you're perfectly safe here, Judy. No one can reach..." And then Judy get a heart attack. Judy Eager suddenly collapses violently. Agent Len reaches out in shock and says, "Miss Eager!" But it's too late.
Judy's body hits the floor hard, completely lifeless. And then she just says, "Call for the medic, now!" And that's where Batman says, "The coroner found no foul play. It was determined Judy Eager died of natural causes. I read the report, and I conducted my own examination of the body. I agree with the coroner's findings, but what Judy Eager was prepared to do was important and dangerous." And then there was the other death, and that's where Batman gives a warning. This is just the beginning. Wait and see what happens next. And then he says, "And so my investigation is continuing." And then we move to Gotham, and this guy appears and he says, Just take it all, man!" And the cop who stands in front of him and he's holding the gun and he just says, "Oh, I plan to, and whatever else you have." And that's where Batman says, "But I'm no closer to an answer." And then the cop checking him and he finds cash cards and pills. Suddenly he senses something, raises his gun and says, "Is someone there?" And that's where Batman says, "And there's a complication. And all of a sudden, Green Arrow has come to my city. Oliver Queen is setting up a new office in Gotham and moving in with Dinah Lance while he does." And on the other side, Oliver Queen shoots an arrow from his bow, striking the cop's hands and says, "Yep, that looks painful." And then the cop says, My hand!" And then Oliver Queen drags him across the ground and says, "Oh, quit complaining. You have a whole other hand on your other arm." And then the cop says, You think you can hurt a cop in this city and get away with it?" And that's where Oliver Queen says, "I mean, yeah, you were committing a crime." And then the cop says, "You're not from Gotham. We do justice differently here, hero." And then Oliver taunts him and drags him the backside of his car and says, "Oh, I know, which is why we'll have to make sure your punishment happens in a better city." And then Oliver Queen goes up to that old man and asks him, "Not every day you're mugged by a cop. You okay?" And then the old man says, "Not really, Ollie." Wait, he knows him? Now, Ollie, he's in shock. He asks, Batman, is that you? And then Batman says, open the trunk. And then Ollie asks him, because you need a spare tire or something? And then Batman just says, because I need a police lieutenant free to keep doing his job. And then Ollie explains to Batman why he took that cop hostage. I captured him pretty comprehensively there. He needs a miraculous escape. And then Batman says, he needs a miraculous escape. And then Ollie says, I guess the Arrow car's trunk could be a little unreliable. And then Batman says, I'm not surprised. And then Ollie says, I'm doing you a favor here. Don't mock the car. And then Ollie unlocks the trunk. And as soon as possible, the GCPD officer leave from that place. And Batman just says, you can't just come into my city and start fighting crime. And Ollie responds, I'm a vigilante. Also, your city? I don't see your name on it. They both are doing argument. And then he says, so, did you supply actual drugs to a corrupt cop? And then Batman says, no, I gave him fake drugs, and he now has a very real tracker in him. And then Ollie asks, in him? And then Batman answers him and say, yeah, in him. Lieutenant Davis is part of a support detail protecting an informant I need to know the location of. You've heard of Klep Corp? And then Ollie says, that wasn't a question. And then Batman says, I know about their upcoming takeover bid for Queen Industries. And then Ollie says, corporate secrets don't exist, do they? And Batman just says, you have a meeting in your new Gotham office tomorrow night. And then Ollie says, they're another generative AI company, scraping personal data, stealing art and stories and knowledge, polluting and using masses of energy and water, taking what the world actually needs to produce nothing anyone wants. And then Batman says, it hasn't been announced, but there's an open investigation into the company and its owner, Richard Klep. Now Green Arrow is frustrated, and then he adds, great, another lawsuit that will end up costing the company a whole lot less than they'd actually have to pay for whatever they've stolen. Batman counters and says, it's more than that. From what I've been able to uncover, this would mean criminal charges for the CEO, owner, and several levels of management.
As they both leave from the place, Batman casually says 3 whistleblowers were set to testify against Klep Corp. Last week, 2 died of natural causes in the same night. And then Ollie says, that's statistically improbable. And then Batman says, yes, and I think it may have been a careless mistake. I haven't been able to find anything concrete, but the deaths occurred at a time when Gotham was feeling no fear. And then Green Arrow says, you think a very effective, very discreet killer got sloppy, and you want to protect the last whistleblower. Got it. Do you need a lift to the thing? And at that moment, the Batmobile is arrived, and Ollie says, it's nice to see you've finally gone electric. Okay, I'll see you later. Now moving to the Wildcat gym, where Diana stands in the center of the ring, and she just says, I thought I was safe. I knew Ted was leaving the gym to me in his will, but Wildcat had 9 lives. I didn't think there was any risk of me actually inheriting this. Wildcat was supposed to be untouchable, but now he's gone, and she inherited something she never expected to have. And so she continued, I want this to continue to be what Ted made it into, a safe place for kids to improve, to work things out, and to hit things really hard. So tomorrow, Ted's gym opens to the public. Tonight, it's just for us. Or inside the gym, everyone sits in front of her and listening her like she's going for the next White House committee member. And as so Diana gives boxing gloves and just says, so the question is, who wants to be the first to go a few rounds? And that's where Damien is up for the round, but Batman stops him and says, no, Damien. And you, Diana. And so Diana just says, yeah, I think Ted would approve. And then Bruce enters the ring and put boxing gloves in his hands. And Diana just says, boxing only, Bruce, fight to knockout. And Bruce is agreed on that, as well as Diana also agrees with Bruce. And at that moment, Barbara asks, how are you going to fight to knockout without hitting each other? And Diana says, Cass will judge. And so Batman just says, Cassandra Cain can see blows before they happen. She will read our intent without us needing to connect. Wildcat taught us all, and he taught us well. But Diana practically lived here. She slept in her gloves. She learned everything Ted had to teach, not just because she wanted to be the best fighter, but because she wanted to achieve a true mastery. She didn't want to risk making a mistake that could cause permanent harm, or worse. We were Ted's star pupils. And then Diana announced the winner name, and Batman continuously says, Diana's star just shone brighter. But there was one other that shone as bright, one that burned out all too fast. But he hasn't faded away, and that's where Cassandra says to Diana, "I really couldn't follow what happened in the ring, but well done." And Diana says, "Thanks." And that's where Batman says, "And I know she's thinking of him, especially being back here. It's who Ollie's thinking of too. It's an unspoken thing, but it's practically being screamed between us, because we all know what tomorrow is. We don't have to say anything. We don't have to plan." And then Oliver Queen, Diana Lance, and Batman head to a graveyard where they stop in front of a grave.
And honestly, it looks like this might be Ted Kord's grave. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Standing in front of the grave, Dinah softly says, "I am sorry." And Batman adds, "It was an accident. It could have happened to any one of us." But Dinah, clearly emotional, responds, "But it only happened to him." Right there, Ollie says, "It felt like the four of us were going to be something." And Batman replies, "We were something. We were a team." Trying to comfort her, Ollie gently tells Dinah, "He loved you, pretty bird." With tears in her eyes, Dinah whispers, "I know." 2 years ago, at just 34 years old, Dinah helped rebuild an entirely new Justice League after the death of Ted Kord, even becoming its chairperson. While investigating a string of missing persons, she uncovered a new version of Veronica Sinclair's underground fighting tournament. Refusing to participate, she shut it down, freeing the mind-controlled fighters with the help of Barbara Gordon. And then suddenly, a child walks up to them and asks, "Excuse me, did the two of you know him?" Confused, Ollie replies, "The two of us? Where?" He looks around and then says, "Seriously, we did. We knew him." The kid then says, "His headstone says hero." And Dinah answers, "Yes, he is." But the child disagrees. "I don't think he was a hero." Dinah asks, "Do you know him?" The kid replies, "I thought I knew him." Then she asks, "Did he smile?" And Ollie responds, "He did, a lot. I didn't know him as long as I would have liked, but he was a good guy to be around. He was fun." Then comes another question. "How did you find him?" The child explains, "I found some old newspapers in my house. Someone had put his picture in the paper, looking for anyone who knew him for this funeral." Ollie then asks, "Who was he to you?" The kid hesitates. And at that exact moment, Dinah notices a car arriving. She turns slightly and says, "Ollie." And just then, a car pulls into the graveyard, and 2 bodyguards step out. Seeing them, Oliver Queen looks straight at them and says, I didn't think the cemetery would have to post a speed limit, but I guess you need a big, clear sign if you're utterly lacking in common sense." And just then, one of the bodyguards turns to Oliver Queen and says, "Release the girls." In that moment, Ollie just says, "We're not holding her, buddy." Meanwhile, hiding behind the graves, Dinah Lance and the little girl watch everything unfold, seeing how those 2 bodyguards are talking to Ollie. And right then, Dinah turns to the child and says, "You don't have to go with these people. It's okay." But I feel like at that moment, Dinah Lance had already started to get suspicious, like the little girl might be in some kind of trouble. And that's exactly why Dinah turns to her and asks, "If you're in any danger at all." And just then, a voice comes from inside the car, and it says, "She's not in any danger." And just then, this old woman steps out of the car and she says, "Though she is definitely in trouble." And then the old woman walks over to them, and looking at the little girl, she says, "You almost gave me a heart attack." And then the kid says, "I'm sorry, grandmother, And then our grandmother just says, "In the car, young lady." As soon as the little girl walks back to her car, the old woman then approaches Dinah Lance and Oliver Queen, and apologizing to them, she says, "I hope you enjoy your time in Gotham, Mr. Queen, and I apologize for disturbing you here, in this place. And you, my dear, I assure that sign or no sign, we will exit this place at a much more appropriate speed." As soon as that old woman leaves with the little girl, Dinah Lance calls out to Bruce, and from behind a tree, where he had been quietly listening to everything, Batman steps out. By now, Bruce, Dinah, and Oliver Queen all feel it. Something isn't right. Something is definitely off. And then Bruce says, "Someone has to claim Prion." Alright guys, this issue is end up here. If you guys like it, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you. See you soon.